How we doing, guys? It's Mr. Shriz and I'm signing in. Today's LEQ is identify the phases of meiosis. So we talked about recently, before break and now after break, about mitosis. Remember, mitosis is a type of cellular division that involves one parent cell, so it's asexual. And we talked about those phases of interphase, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, all those there. But now we're going to be talking a little bit about meiosis. It's similar to mitosis, but does have some differences as well. So first, looking at meiosis, what meiosis is. Meiosis is a type of cell division that results in 4 cells with half the chromosomes from mom and the other half from dad. So we're now getting into sexual reproduction here. And a big difference you already notice right there between meiosis is it's 4 cells. Remember, mitosis was 2 diploid cells, where now meiosis is getting into 4 haploid cells. But we'll get into those haploid cells a little bit later in the video here. And as you can see here, notice, it has interphase. There's meiosis 1 and then meiosis 2. So that's another difference we'll get into, where meiosis divides twice, whereas mitosis only divided once. So once again, meiosis is cell division, results in 4 cells. You get half the chromosomes from mom and the other half from dad. So this is going into, we're getting into more of like characteristics, why your hair is brown or your eyes are blue or anything along that nature as well. Now moving into gametes, you have to know what gametes are because, in mitosis, gametes are not involved, but in meiosis, gametes are involved. And what gametes are? So gametes are sex cells like the sperm and the egg that contain a single set of chromosomes. So once again, you get that single set of chromosomes, one from your mom, 23 chromosomes from your mom in the egg cell, and then 23 chromosomes from the sperm from your dad. And those just make up the gametes right there. And once again, those sex cells are only seen in meiosis. Sex cells are not seen in mitosis because mitosis, remember, is that split of the nucleus there by one parent cell. Now, we already talked about how many cells meiosis produces. And once again, that cell is 4 haploid cells. So remember here, now this is just already gone through the first phase or the first stages of meiosis, starting at meiosis 2 here. But once again, you get 4 haploid cells. And what haploid means, once again, is that haploid cells are cells that contain half the number of chromosomes of a diploid cell. And I give you the example here because you're going to have to know it. So a diploid has, let's say, 48 chromosomes, and then a haploid cell is going to have 24. Because remember that haploid cells are half the number of chromosomes of that diploid cell. So that's a big difference there between mitosis and meiosis, is that meiosis produces 4 haploid cells, whereas mitosis produces 2 diploid cells. Now moving on to the phases here. So if you notice in the phases here, once again, it starts with interphase in meiosis 1, and then it goes to prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, cytokinesis. That IPMAT, the same thing you can use for mitosis there. But once again, I said in the beginning of the video where meiosis now divides twice, and that's how you get the 4 cells. So after cytokinesis, there then goes to prophase 2, metaphase 2, anaphase 2, telophase 2, and finally cytokinesis 2. So that's a big difference there, that meiosis reproduces, or not reproduces, it divides twice, whereas mitosis only divides once. And as you can see here, it goes through prophase all the way to telophase 1, and then it's starting with that prophase 2, and it ends with cytokinesis, telophase 2, where you get the 4 daughter cells, those 4 haploid cells with half the number of chromosomes there. Now, and I said it earlier too, is once again in the beginning of the video, that meiosis is a type of sexual reproduction because there's 2 parent cells. Remember, you got the sperm from your dad and the egg from your mom. Whereas mitosis, remember, that was asexual because you only need 1 parent cell from there. Now, we're going a little bit more into these phases just to determine, what occurs in the phase. So we're going to be looking at what something occurs during prophase 1, and that's called crossing over. So what crossing over is, it's when homologous chromosomes pair up with each other and exchange different segments of their genetic material. Occurs during prophase 1. Make sure you make note of that crossing over occurs during prophase 1. So you have your chromosome from your dad and your chromosome from your mom. And then because of crossing over, those segments then switch, or they exchange. So now if you look at the end result, part of your mother's chromosome is now on your father's chromosome, whereas part of your mother's chromosome now has part of your father's chromosomes. So crossing over, once again, it's that exchange of the genetic material there with different segments, in that chromosome, in the homologous chromosome, and occurs during prophase 1. So it's important to know that it occurs during prophase 1. You might or might not see it on your test, which you'll probably end up seeing on your test there. Another one you're going to have to end up knowing is the law of independent assortment. And what the law of independent assortment just says is it's the division of homologous chromosomes is random and do not influence each other. So what that basically is saying is you can have, let's say you have brown hair. Well, because you have brown hair, it's not going to influence that you're going to have blue eyes automatically. Obviously you may be able to have blue eyes, but you can also have brown eyes as well. So, hair is not influencing the eyes, or, how the height, how tall you are, doesn't influence your, I don't know, your hair or anything like that. So the division of homologous chromosomes is random and they do not influence each other. That's the law of independent assortment. As you can see here in the video, you have these division of the cells here, and you can have two different combinations. You can have a combination that looks like this, a combination that looks like that. So it's just by random. We'll get into Punnett squares, and we'll talk about how we can have blue eyes, or how you maybe will end up with brown eyes. Determining what your parents, depending on what your parents' genes are, but it's in the law of independent assortment says that it's at random. So one gene does not influence another gene there. Now, similar to what we did with mitosis, on that left-hand page there, I want to make sure you know what occurs in each phase of meiosis 1 and meiosis 2, along with a picture of each one as well. So I know this one's going to be a little bit longer because there's two different divisions there, but it's something you definitely need to know for sure. So moving over there onto page 70. So we're looking at prophase 1 and metaphase 1 here. So remember, prophase 1, each replicated chromosome pairs up with its homologous chromosome. Remember, crossing over occurs during prophase 1, as you can see here, where that dad cell is crossing over with the mother cell there. Now, during metaphase 1, remember, meta for middle, paired homologous chromosomes line up in the middle of the cell there. Now moving on to anaphase 1. Remember, anaphase 1, those spindle fibers pull each homologous chromosome towards the end of the cell. And then in telophase 1, nuclear membranes reform. So once again, make sure you're getting these down. You're drawing out the picture. You don't have to put what's happening. You don't have to write chromosome movement up here at the top like it is there. But just make sure we're getting that picture and description down, because once again, on the test, you might see a description, you might see a picture, but you got to be able to label each one, especially when it comes into meiosis, when you have two different cell divisions, where you can have an anaphase 1 or an anaphase 2 there. And then finally, that last one, cytokinesis. And cytokinesis is just the division of the cell into two. So cytokinesis 1, cell splits into 2. Now we're going to move into meiosis 2 here. So meiosis 2 is very similar to meiosis 1 in the sense of what's occurring in the cell. But now you can, as a good way to kind of see what's happening, or if you had to choose between a picture, whether it's like prophase 1 or prophase 2, look at the cells as well. So notice here in prophase 1, you only had one cell. But now in prophase 2, we're dealing with two cells. So prophase 2, chromosomes become visible there. And then once again, metaphase, remember I told you meta for middle. And metaphase 2, chromosomes line up in the middle of the cell there. Once again, you have two cells we're working with instead of one, because this is meiosis 2. Now moving on to anaphase and telophase 2. So anaphase 2, the pair of chromatids separate. They're being moved towards their opposite poles there, as you can see there. And then in telophase 2, the nuclear membrane reforms once again. But notice now in telophase 2 how it's starting to divide into 4 cells instead of 2, because we're once again in that meiosis 2. And finally, towards the end, you have cytokinesis 2. Once again, cytokinesis is just the splitting of the cell. But remember, meiosis 2, it's into 4 haploid cells. Whereas meiosis 1, it was in a 2. Now in cytokinesis 2, you get 4 haploid cells as the end result. So that concludes our video today on meiosis. Make sure you get that summary down as well with those phases of meiosis. This is Mr. Driz signing out.